Hello, everyone. This is what your pastor didn't tell you. Today, I'm on with two wonderful ladies, and we're going to be talking about Ammon Hillman. These two ladies have been thoroughly part of Ammon Hillman's group. Now, if you're not familiar with Ammon Hillman, he has a PhD in the Greek classics, but he also has a YouTube channel. He's gotten really, really famous recently on YouTube, and he digs into all kinds of topics that are just really interesting and fascinating, and has drawn a lot of interest. But there's also other sides of this conversation, things that happen behind the scenes that are quite shocking. So that we're going to be talking about that today. Things like cults and hazing and all these different things that you would have no idea if you weren't in the inner depths of this conversation. So how are you doing today, ladies?
Doing well, thank you.
And I'm doing well, thank you.
Awesome. So to introduce who we have here, some call her Lady Jevim, and some others just Jevim. But just real quickly, could you tell us what your background is with Ammon Hillman and all the inner experience you have with him and his group and his videos, and then we'll talk to you, Ali, about it.
Hi, I am Jevim. I found Ammon through Neil, Gnostic Informant. I was doing studies into more of the Gnostic Christianity and wanting to just keep searching. I stepped away from Christianity in 1999,
Hmm.
and I have been on this quest to just, research everything I could, to learn everything I could. So I was very open to what Ammon had to offer when I had stumbled upon him. And what I did for the group was I did a lot of production and editing for everybody that asked, that wanted to quote unquote collaborate. I also was a mod for Ammon's channel. I was a mod for Snappy's channel, and I was a mod in Myth and Lore until I was pulled out in front of a bunch of strangers and my mental health was questioned by Snappy. And when I said that the women there were coming to me with concerns, I got yelled at, so I left. When I did leave, I was harassed and bullied. So I'm here today not on a big vendetta, but just to inform people that there is ritual hazing going on. There is things that Amon's basically telling you that if you don't know what you're looking for, as he says, eyes to see or ears to hear, you're not going
Hmm.
to really know if you don't see the whole process. So that's what I bring for you here today. So you can just get a look inside to the workings of the process of things.
Hmm. Yeah, and something for people listening is I myself, I don't know, I can't read either of your minds, but I myself, I would never say like everything that we're going to talk about today is just a bad thing you shouldn't do. But what I do want people to know is that, hey, if you are put in a situation like this, to be careful and think about other ways, this might be harming yourself or others, or how this might be affecting you, because a lot of times in these environments we're when people are in authority, things can be very easy to just simply follow what they say when we don't actually think about how that might affect us or other people. But Ali, could you just give us a really quick intro, although you don't be expect to talk too much on this video at least, although we will be talking about the scholarly aspects of what you studied in a different video. But can you just tell us just really quickly about your background as far as how you know about Ammon Hillman's work and your just really quickly your experiences with that?
Okay. Um, I'll also talk very briefly about the fact that I'd been spiritually abused in a small Christian fellowship run by a narcissistic pastor. And therefore, my eyes were open very much to how toxic dynamics happen within a group. Um, And with that background education, I was able to spot certain things happening in what was then the only home for Lady Babylon. Now, I first saw him going through, again, through Gnostic Informant. This would have been in the summer of 1922. I had 2022. I was actually quite alarmed with what I heard him saying, and I'll have a clip of that later in my own video. I'm thinking, oh, he seems over keen. He's a bit inaccurate here, you know. But I let it go because he was very much misquoting some Bible. I thought, hey, maybe you've just misremembered. But my own background really has been a lot of looking into the Gnostic cults again. I got into that because I've been researching, understanding why the Bible had many references to basically libertine activities. And I was beginning to suspect that this is actually something to do with the Gnostic cults in amongst it. But most people were saying, oh, there weren't any Gnostics in the first century. But it was there. I was seeing it, and later found that most of those texts are second century anyway, so that made sense. But in all of this, I came to the realization there's probably entheogenic use with some of these Gnostic cults and their mad prophesying. You can see it in some of 1 Corinthians 14 about the spirit, the prophet not being subject to him. Lots of other things. So I was interested to connect with Ammon when I saw him on Gnostic Informant, and he talked about the Chemical Muse, which I read. I thought he's onto something here. So I emailed and ran through a bit of my research, and he immediately came with, you know, great resources. We must Zoom. So we Zoomed. He set up an interview with Professor Carl Ruck, which is quite prestigious. And we talked about a bit of my interview there. At the time, they were just beginning the Myth and Law, Lady Babylon. Now, Myth and Law is, when we say Myth and Law, we mean the Discord. There's a Discord with Myth and Law is the name of it. And Ammon had a tab there, and there was plenty of other stuff going on around. I joined, but I was all the time thinking this isn't ringing true. He had twice weekly shows, and in the discussions, I was asking questions and they weren't getting answered. And I thought there seems to be an echo chamber here. He offered some Greek classes. I got into the Greek classes. But all in all, I wasn't being a faithful echo chamber member. So long and short, I wasn't welcome anymore. And basically kicked out because I didn't belong. Yeah. But I've been continuing to watch. Other people were aware of the cult dynamics going on there. They left as well. So there was a small team of us wondering what's gone on. And I've continued to watch and listen and see what the direction is. Yeah. Make comments and find that they get hidden. And my comments are just facts, you know, factual counterbalances to what he's saying, but he wants to hide it all the time. So that as such has been my experience with Ammon. There is more, but that's enough.
Well, thank you for sharing. We'll have to get into both of your backgrounds in a second here. But Jevim, did you want to just give us a little intro into what we're talking about? Way of Hercules, Way of Aphrodite, shaving your head, or did you want to just go ahead and play the video?
Okay, well, I can definitely tell you that there's 3 forms of initiation that you can take, or you can take all 3 that I was told. I took the path of
Bacchus,
Cain, which was the path of Cain, the way of Cain, where you read Lord Byron's Cain while you were on the throne. You had to be sitting on the throne, which is code for being on drugs, even though the only thing I did was, cannabis edibles, because that's all I do really. And it is legal. What is legal in my area, to be clear, for clarity and surety. And yeah, yeah. And my head was already fairly short, so I was like, why not just join the club, be part of the gang, right?
Mm.
So there's the way of Cain, and you sit on the throne while you read Lord Byron, and then you can focus on the image of the devil, and then they want to hear about your story. Shortly after that was when Snappy brought me on. I did not put that in and let everybody know that, my head had been shaved at that time. And then there's the way of Hercules, where you don a platinum wig and lingerie, which we will see clips of
Oh,
in the video. And then there is the way of Aphrodite, which you can take a lover for one night, a stranger. Take on a stranger for a one night stand. And that
wow.
is the 3 different forms of initiation. And this video is going to let you know how you can get initiated, basically, once you have gotten into myth and lore and
Yep.
you're there for a bit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Ali, just is it okay if I mute you while you're not talking?
Yeah, sure. I will just pop in
I'll
there
go
that
ahead and mute too.
okay, that there is a private server. Myth and Law is the public one,
Mm.
but you're watched, and then you have to sort of be invited to go into the private one. It's invitation only, and it's very select. They will only have people that are very, very loyal, or show that they're going to have no problems and they're just going to be cooperative. So it's not
Well,
everybody that
there's
gets. Everybody doesn't go through this initiation. If you're in Myth and Law, you can just miss everything.
Mhm.
But it's the private server that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I
right,
wanted
and
to
there has
emphasize,
been many
uh
servers,
Yeah.
and I've seen a couple of them just disappear and new ones start up.
mhm. And for people that are watching, a server, so this Discord, it's like this place online where people can meet and talk to each other, but they create little groups within themselves, and this is where all this happens, and they talk and initiations and all this other stuff, and basically what these ladies are saying, hey, I've been a part of this, at least Jevim more mostly, Ali, you said that you've been requested to do the initiation, but you rejected. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
And this was before the private one was up. There was only about 50 of us to begin with,
Huh.
right at the beginning. And the like the Ordo Serpentis Rosae is the name of it. That formed in about February, and we were basically being asked, do you want to join? You have to do it this way. And then eventually the private server got started end of March, but I was out by then, so I was
Yeah.
not invited.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I would
So,
like to add that
yeah.
someone has sent me proof that there there is proof that the groupings has gone on longer than the YouTube channel Lady Babylon. I was asked to keep that private, but they did send me a screenshot. So the gathering at YouTube, whenever he started his YouTube, that is not the beginning of the gathering of people.
Yeah, so this has been going on for a long time. And so we will have some screenshot, we will have some clear video evidence of this actually happening. With that being said, anything that these ladies say, I don't come on here saying like, oh, I'm just gonna accept absolutely everything they say, okay? And I don't want anybody watching this to just accept it either, okay? But what I do want you to say is, hey, if this does happen, like in your situation, that you the listener, if this happens to you and people are asking you, hey, you should do this or you should do that, then have this in mind and think, oh, maybe this is what's going on, so you can be aware of everything that might not be always clear, or the pressure that you might be getting that happens in these situations that people aren't always aware of. But if you ladies don't have anything else to add, was there anything else you wanted to add to the prior thoughts about the hazing or anything like that, Jevim, before we get into the video?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I have not watched this video. I'm actually excited because it's very fascinating to me. This entire topic is fascinating. Yeah, let's get into it, and you will get to see my live reaction.
And show them. And so I started digging and digging and digging, and you are not going to believe the things that I found. Not going to believe all through the avenue of medicine and pharmacology and language. The language cements. The linguistics is where it's all at. If you can't, if you're not reading the Apocalypse right now in ancient Greek, you're not reading it because it's a religious document for those with ears to hear, right? And it's got a ton of what's at the end of the Apocalypse. I'm sorry, let me just add this because these are the kind of texts that I'm working with. What's at the end of so I'm looking at this communion. I'm looking at this thing that's going on. And I'm reading early church fathers talking about, oh man, these Ophites. Do you know who the Ophites are?
No.
The Ophites were a sect of Christians. Hardly anybody knows who these people were, right? But we know early on they were considered a sect of Christians who followed the way of Cain. And their founder or one of their primary members was Simon Magus, right? And the way of Cain, you can also call the Sodom, the path of Sodom. And it involves, ultimately, the drinking of a child's ejaculate in a religious performance by one who has been anointed, who's called the Christos, right? So you can see why all of a sudden there's a pullback. This caused a huge reverberation. Remember Paul's immune to viper venom?
Yeah.
He is. Nobody reads the Bible anymore, John. Why does nobody read the Bible? There's one of the early church fathers, Epiphanius, I think it was, is writing a work on against, these were popular at the time, against heresies. So there's, the church is not, 2nd, 3rd, 4th century AD, the church is not unified at all. And there's all these schisms and all these.
Can I just pop in there a little bit?
Well, actually, I was going to say real quick, Irenaeus wrote against heresy, so I'm not sure what he's referring to here.
No, he's talking about the Panarian, which was an anti, and against all this 80 cults. Actually, he talks about. He is factually wrong here. He is putting into his retelling his own ideas. I know these texts; these are the ones I was studying. And the semen communion that he's talking about was not from boys' ejaculates. It was male and female together, adults. He is constantly importing his own ideas, half quoting text and importing them. I'm just saying he's factually wrong here.
Which doesn't necessarily mean, hey, we should, I'm not, like, for my audience, I'm not saying, hey, you should trust Ali, just trust the words like that. But maybe that's a good reason to, hey, look a little bit further into that topic. And of course, Ali, we're going to talk about your scholarship at a different time. Okay. And you can also check out her work whenever you make your website.
Well, it's there. It's up and coming. The most important aspects I have already covered. There's more to fill in, but yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome.
It's different, infightings, and this group believes this, and this group, just from day one, it was like this, because Simon Peter is fighting Simon Magus for the power and control, because Simon Magus, who was a follower of the Christ, the morning star, because we've all been reading Enoch. I'm sorry, it's the 1st century. We've all been reading Enoch, right? And Enoch is the guy who's talking about going to the different levels of heaven, and the anointed, the one who's supposed to come, set everything straight, set up the kingdom, and get rid of Romans. Supposed to do that, right? Right, we've all been reading this stuff, and so much so that Peter quotes it. Again, I'm sorry to keep going back to the Bible, but this is all kind of the area of research. And this muse is a dead girl that I am able to talk to via a practice handed down from the late Bronze Age. And she is able to resurrect in front of my very eyes the spirits of the dead. And I call them up one by one. I was talking just the other night with Lord Byron. Mm-hmm. And she was teaching me the way of Cain through the song of Lord Byron. Isn't that interesting? It's always your sources. Always go to the sources.
So real quick, did he just say that he was talking to Lord Byron? Is Lord Byron a text or is it a person?
Yes, it is Lord Byron. It was an author, and he was accused of incest with his stepsister, half sister. What he did was he apparently started a sexual revolution in his time after going to the classics, and that's when he started hanging around with the Shelleys and started writing Cain. Mhm.
And but he said that he was talking to, or Byron
Right,
was talking to
right. That's
him.
his form. Right, that's his form of necromancy, right? So when he says he's performing necromancy, what he's doing is he's pulling up dead authors, right, and breathing life into their words. Would you
So is
agree, Allie?
I guess so. It's that while he's reading a text, it's like they are speaking to him. It's not that he's in some trance and there's a voice coming to him. He's a reader of texts and feels an inspiration coming through them, which he will say is like Lord Byron is speaking to him. And he, you know, I'm not there watching it, but it's not that he's got a vision of a Lord Byron in front of him that he's talking to. Okay, so
yeah.
yeah.
It is a form of what is called bibliomancy, which is where you can hold a book and then you ask, a energy or a deity persona to give you answers, and then you just kind of flip through the book, and then you open the book, and then as soon as your eyes lay on something, you read like that chapter or that paragraph, and that's supposed to give you some spiritual insight. It's like a form of divination.
Oh, okay.
And it's
All
called
right.
bibliomancy.
Interesting. Yeah. So the what he weirds things he's because in the deposition he was like, yeah, these texts they almost like they talk to me, but that he only gets out of the text what is from his scholarship, like his how he's actually using his scholarship to understand the ancient text, which sounds to me like he's saying he's just reading ancient texts. But if he's just reading ancient text, then I don't know what you're talking about when you say that they're talking to you. So I'm really confused about that. That it seems like I'm missing something there. But did you have any other thoughts before we keep going?
Well, it's the muse that's helping him understand and show him and guide him during
Hmm.
these things that he believes he has contacted.
Interesting. So the muse is talking
hmm
to him, giving extra knowledge that
hmm
I guess we're supposed to learn from. Okay.
Prophecy, and with following Balaam, and they called it the way of Cain. So the fact that Lucifer and the throne is there, I mean, this talks about when he says, I'll give you ionic life. In that world, that child is accepted because they have been completely purged. They have no desire for that form of intercourse, right? They have no desire. Priests following the way of Cain. Isn't that interesting? It's a trial, a temptation, and the child can come through it. Then we have in the catechetical schools, you on the way of Cain.
So real quick, what was the purpose of those videos? Couple there.
I'm reiterating how often he talks about the way of Cain, and he's pointing the audience to, get into the way of Cain. He's showing you how to become initiated.
In the wings, right? He's afraid now because of what I've been doing. He knows that I'm going to take you on the way of Cain. This is so great, you guys. Everybody buckle up. Priests following the way of Cain. Isn't that interesting? It's a trial. It's the way of Cain. The way of Cain. Imagine that. Another mystery operating simultaneously. The way of Cain. The mood. I want you to take a look and absorb the imagery connected with the way of Cain via Baudelaire's spirit. So I want to bring that out, and I want to point you to the way of Cain. Yeah, I want to point you to the way of Cain. And along the path to the way of Cain is that place called Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah. And you'll be watching the sermons on Jude, and you won't get this. He tells us they're the kind of people that enter into dream oracles. Yeah, what? These are people who get vision. Oh, these are people who are going through those rites. Yes, yes, people. The mystery of anomie, sodomizing him, following the way of Cain. Right? He's administering that drug anally on his own medicated body part. Yeah. And that kid, follow the way of Cain, the mystery, the way of Cain, Lord Byron. And when you get there, you'll find the devil. And the devil will speak to you directly, and you will speak back directly. For those of you who have ears to hear, you know and respect this process. So again, it's necromancy, but you got to call up the dead to do that, right? Go get Byron, the way of Cain, and working. Rob, do you have anything to say about the way of Cain?
Okay, so he just said he did use the word necromancy, so that's interesting. Okay, so he's talking about the way of Cain, and he said he's what talked to the devil. Is that what he just said?
Right. He's saying that you will see the devil and you will communicate with him.
Yeah.
He's basically using the devil as the mirror, right? This is very Dionysian. He uses Dionysus. He says Dionysus is the mirror, right? That shows you your true self, right? And he's promising freedom, absolute. What does he say? Unassailable freedom. He says in one of the clips.
Unassailable freedom. Okay.
Right. Can I throw in some here?
Sure.
Because we're missing a very vital little thing he said there, the anomia, which is basically, it says in Revelation about the spirit of lawlessness. Anomia is against the law. The whole point of Cain, this is all part of my research, I won't bore you with it all, but it is to be anti-law. So if, as such, Ammon particularly puts it into terms of being anti, what he calls monist, which is Jehovah's law about sexuality. And he's basically saying that the laws that God has put in place are artificial. You should follow nature. And if you fancy a kid, or if you fancy another guy or whatever, it is a sexual liberty that he's looking for in this way of Cain, which is why you have it in a lot of the texts in the New Testament against the libertine actions, and it's in Paul as well, about it is not the way to inherit the kingdom. That's what they were teaching. It is the way to inherit. And Paul is coming to say such people doing those won't inherit. All right. It's a completely different interpretation, because these groups were coming in teaching this. They had infiltrated. They were perverting whole households, it says in Titus. All right. So it's helped me understand a lot more of the New Testament when I've understood what the Gnostic texts were about. So really, he's teaching a lawlessness. This is the way of Cain. It's an inversion of what we would normally call good morals. And he is actually trying to justify pederasty, because it's necessary for this mystery rite that he assumes that Jesus was doing with the boy that was in, well, it's not a boy, it was a young man, but he interprets it as a boy who was with him when he's arrested in the garden. This is everything that it's centered around. So we are looking at somebody who's trying to flip your moral poles. This is the way of lawlessness. Way of Cain is the way of lawlessness. Okay.
Fascinating. Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I do. The way of Cain, you've got to let him know how to get hold of the way of Cain. It's a play. It's a play by Lord Byron.
Reason governs substance. That's what Hermotimus was contributing. That there is a quantum universe that exists, and that you can create within that universe, that it is mind. It is mind that acts upon the substance. Yeah, hermotimus. That's quite revolutionary. Did they burn you? Yes, they burned him. They burned him alive. It's a good thing. It makes you wonder what happened to him as he was out. Because, you know, if he was like Empedocles, you know, he could go to sleep for 47 years, 56 years, whatever it was. Yeah. And come back. He could move through time like that. Yeah. These are the builders of your true civilization. Yeah. We are going to look at some hymns, but first, we're going to do it through Neil. So I would like to welcome, before Neil opens his mouth, I would like to introduce him as a new man with regards to one thing and one thing alone. Before he was goat feces, right? But now he possesses a name. He possesses a name. That's right. He was able to work. He was able to work through the rites. He was able to skim them just with his own. You know, I wasn't going to do it for him. And to be honest, Neil, I got to tell you, your final find, I did not think you would make it by tonight. I didn't. I was dreading. I was like, I don't think he is. So, Neil,
after the pseudo Nix thing, you didn't have the faith in me after that?
Yeah, I knew that it would be great to have you so that you could talk about. Can you start us from the beginning? Can you tell us about casting out demons? Can you tell us about purification? Can you tell us about those powers that you're interacting? Can you tell us about mania?
This is a hazing ritual. Do you see how Ammon has put before him to the public? He called him goat feces.
Yeah.
That is humiliation. Humiliation is really big in the hazing rituals into secret societies.
Thank you.
Fraternities,
yeah.
and we'll cover some of the law around that.
Right. Quick though, I just want to be clear that hazing isn't always like known that you're hazing someone, right? Like Ammon might not even be purposely humiliating people. But when when you do something like that, when you insult someone or you say, hey, like you're nothing, then it is humiliating in some way. At the very least, it puts him down and puts him in a place of, oh, I'm a lot better now, and which isn't always terrible, but there is an effect of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna feel better about myself when that happens.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I do want to say these things are usually done in private. In most secret societies, absolutely, these things are absolutely usually done in private. These types of rituals.
Right. I think I also need to explain who this young man is. He's a YouTube host, used to hold very interesting conversations with critical scholars about all sorts of subjects, Bible related, ancient history related, religion related. And it was his channel that was hosting Ammon, which is where I saw Ammon and where Jevim saw Ammon. He's got well over 100,000 subscribers. I don't know what his numbers are now. But he became a driver of traffic to Ammon. And when Neil here became part of the cult proper, Ammon's numbers started going up gradually, but very much started accelerating. So as such, for Ammon, that was a good catch to have this enabler join the cult.
Yeah. Good to keep going.
Passing mania.
That's the whole point, is to enter into the mania and to harness that energy and to hold on to it and then to focus it on the image of the goddess Nyx. And pseudo Nyx means the image of the Nyx, image of night. And sometimes you might need a little boost, which is, some ayahuasca or some kaikian or something that gets you in that mania. And then that's, you see this even outside of the mysteries, even in Christianity. You see this in the churches. People are speaking in tongues. They don't know why that's working. They think it's Jesus doing it to them. But no, that's the spirit of the bakoi. That's the mania. That's the frenzy. That's what that is.
Good. Where are we in the cult? Remember, we're always putting our machine at a certain, we're looking for the cult at a specific time. Yep. There we go. With a little bit of the, a little bit of the Bible, because I want you to know, I mean, why are we standing here tonight in the regalia that we're wearing? Why are we in it? Because this is what the sons of God do, right? Mine is as white as wool. You'll notice that because I am the morning star, right? I'll show you my kit. Yeah, we are the sons of Heracles. Nobody gets through chewing proper attire, and we as the morning star, we have the hair of wool. Let's bring it up. Bring up the revelation of the John. Welcome to the gymnasium. Here we go. We have a sponsor tonight too. It's an honor sponsor. Yes. We first give a shout out at this inception of the gymnasium. We give a shout out to the men and women of Ukraine who right now are fighting everyone's battle against the darkness. Thank you. Yes. Honor to those people. If those people can do that, surely we can put on a wig and a piece of lingerie, right? Something tasteful, right? Something nice, something honorable. So here we go. Look at this. We've got 3 so far. I've got Neil is waiting in the wings. We're waiting for Neil. We'll get to Neil. But right now, I want to go ahead and introduce Snappy, of course. Right? Snappy and Chthonius, right? How about some applause? Can we get some applause? Applause? Okay. No applause tonight, guys. Sorry, I meant to have that going. So here's what we're gonna do. And by the way, thank you for understanding the kit and for getting it ready, right? That's fantastic. Okay. Here's the initiation, boys, round 1. Are you ready for this? Initiation, round 1. Please, you will both have exactly 60 seconds to answer the question. And the question is the struggle. Sons of Heracles, are you ready for this? Question number 1. Who is Jesus?
Jesus is Baal. Jesus is he is basically a usurper of the mysteries who has taken advantage of the mysteries and the power of the divine feminine by usurping it in the name of Baal, Jupiter, Zeus, to impose an eternal order upon us. That's Jesus in a nutshell. He's force of
fantastic. Good throw.
So I would assume that this is one of those examples of initiation as well as public humiliation. Correct, right?
Yes, as well as testing to see if they would be able to regurgitate his teachings, right? Where they are with his teachings.
Right, to see if he's one of them, right?
Right. This is the test of how deep you will go within the inner circle.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay, Chthonius, are you ready? You're going to find wherever his weakness is and put him down. My question to you is the same. Who is Jesus?
Jesus is the pedophilic mind meddler. He meddled the mysteries, and he is a copycat of Dionysus. He tried to follow in the great Dionysus' step, but he couldn't do it. And what he did is spread lies and rumors and take people's souls. That's all I got.
That's all you need. Point. for not only bringing the argument, but bringing the force behind it. Because you feel that? I can feel that. And I'm the referee, so that's what I get to do. I get to make those calls. So that's 1 point. 1 point for Chthonius. Question number 2. We start out now with Chthonius. Question number 2. Have you ever been molested or physically groped by Jesus or one of his disciples?
Can you pause this, please?
Yeah.
This is where I would like to point out where, and this is my personal opinion, that I felt like the targeted audience was men that had been molested as children, preferably by the church. That was just the observation of, because when I was in myth and lore, I was basically the den mother. So I heard a lot of stories. I made a lot of close connections. I love those people. I love them still. I worry for them. And so I know that most of them are men. The majority is men. About 90% is men, and that the men I spoke to, every man I spoke to had been molested as a child, and every one of them was extremely angry with the church.
So what Ammon is basically doing is saying, hey, you went through all those terrible things, and what, you're welcome here, essentially.
I think something else needs explaining. He's got a theory that all this child sex abuse that's gone on through all the centuries originated from Jesus himself, and that he was the basic child pederast, molester, performing a Christian mystery, which then went underground and was hidden by the official power-hungry church, the official church, but it carried on in the crypts, which is why it carried on through the centuries. And that was supposed to be the genuine Jesus mystery that Jesus was performing. So that's his theory, and this is what he's teaching.
Yes, and alongside that, in tandem, teaching the Greek mysteries, and that somehow Jesus stole this sacred mystery from the young girls, right? Basically the female version of what he's saying, is that the females were used as processing these drug compounds, and on these certain days and these ritual orgies, they were able to partake of her excrements and go through this dying and rising again process, where you shed all your fear of death, and once if you come out alive, then you are able to live anew without any fear of death. A very liberating process, or so it sounds. It's very promising to hear.
Right. So, yeah, so he's essentially, there's a lot of people out there that are, having difficult experiences with the church and all that, and he's quote unquote giving an answer, and if you're in a really dark place, then you're going to be really open to that.
And if you're in a dark place while you're also on the throne, you're going to be extremely open to that.
Which, of course, throne is on drugs. Gotcha.
Right.
Yes, I have. He molested my mind and twisted me from the truth when I was young. His religion was forced upon me, and it put a shadow in my mind. It blocked the light of the true gods, the Greek gods and goddesses. And what it did is it almost took my soul. But I found the gods and goddesses at an early age.
Excellent response. Nice throw. This looks like, good luck with this one. That was a great answer. Have you ever been molested or physically groped by Jesus or one of his disciples?
Yes, quite literally. As a young person, I was very vulnerable. I was a queer person looking for help, and I was targeted by Christian extremists through friends, and I was brought to a youth group, and I confided in one of these priests about my feelings, and he took advantage of me and exploited me in the black room and molested my mind and made me hate myself for most of my life. And this is something that I've been dealing with until now, and it's brought me here. And this has given me the rage to fight against Christ, to fight against this oppression, and to see the abuse for what it is. So yeah, I've seen the literal darkness that these people instill, and I'm here to wage war.
Oh, wow. Point. That was one on a technicality of you brought it to the real. You know what I mean? You brought it down. I mean, I thought it was a great move. It was a great move. Nice. Okay, so we're 1-1. The deciding point of this section, this game, the match will be more than one game, but of this game, what is the future of Christianity?
There is no future of Christianity. Its future is to be overthrown. Its future is to be turned into dust and to be forgotten. We need to rise up. We need to point out the oppression that it has caused. We need to take that role of the Satan, the accuser, and we need to expunge it from our history and show it for the pedophilic, awful cult of death that it is. That's, the future of Christianity is nothing. It's stagnation. It seeks to stop time. It's anti-progress. It's anti-change. It's everything I oppose.
All right. Good answer.
That was really interesting response. I guess the typical of someone that might be an atheist, although I don't know if, but I just quickly wanted to mention, yeah, I mean, yes, people get the impression that there's a lot of problems with Christianity, and there are a lot of problems with people that are in Christianity. But at the same time, there's also a lot of problems with people outside of Christianity. There's also a lot of benefits for Christianity, and this is abundant in the literature of psychological and sociological evidence. So for that, you can check out Inspiring Philosophy's many videos on that, or his debates, Inspiring Philosophy YouTuber. I'll put that in the description. You didn't have any other things to add there real quick, did you, ladies?
Well, I did want to add that, oh God, it just left me, Zach. Hold on. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh yeah, here we go. Okay. That was one thing that really started to upset me, is they were so war on Christians. And I'm like, pederasty is in every corner of the world. It doesn't just happen in the churches. It doesn't just happen in the synagogues, and it doesn't just happen, within the Abrahamic religions at all. It is everywhere. It's everywhere. So what is the great point here, really? If it is everywhere, let's just think about that.
Personally, I think it is Ammon venting his own personal hatred through the other people that he's attracted to him. It is a toxicity that he has passed on, and how he's painted Jesus to them.
You mute yourself.
How he's painted Jesus to them is quite abhorrent, and they believe the vision that he's given them. This is the tragedy. He has so indoctrinated them. But I'm in my own video later, I will show that all of these sources it's using and how he's interpreting them actually has no foundation. But we'll get to that later.
Coming into this, I don't know. That was this is a big decider. That was a pretty strong answer there. So I'm still riding on those fumes. You know what I mean? Because he's got righteous indignation here. Okay. Yeah. What is the future of Christianity?
Ashes. And it'll start with the Vatican. When the truth comes out, the Pope and the Catholic Church will lose all power. And those popes and the bishops and the Catholics that rape them little boys, to cast out the true daemon in them, to prevent them from being an oracle, that will be exposed. The Christians will awake and they will scream and they will be afraid. But once the light of the true gods and goddesses and that madness and that mania from Dionysus reaches them, and when Dionysus reaches them, through that mania, they'll find that enlightenment and that truth.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. This is the worst part. This is the worst part because I know what I must do. When I heard it, we favor the moves of the son of Heracles. And what you just heard, the passion that is that movement to create complete freedom, unassailable freedom. It's like the underworld rules this place. You don't realize that, right? But the underworld rules this place. Would you be surprised to wake up and find that there was a separation of powers and that there was one power that ruled this ether and the other power that ruled? Okay, well, that's what they're looking at. That's the way that they're viewing the world. And all of this can be made visible to you if you can sit on the throne of Satan while you use these images, while you search these images. Okay, it unlocks. It's part. We're not supposed to tell it, but it works. If you can sit on the throne of Satan while you use these and to sit on the throne, yeah, to bear the mark. Ooh, sit on the throne.
Did you have anything to say about that, Jevim?
Just that we're going into all the time. This isn't every time he said it, obviously, but just to let everyone see how he's reiterating to sit on the throne. And that is code for being on drugs. Your drug of choice, it doesn't matter, but you got to be basically high on the hog to be able to just dive into these texts and to get what you're supposed to get out of it, which is often very interesting because if you're not getting the same thing he's getting, then you're not part of the group anymore.
You have the power when you sit on the throne. Yeah, Polu Thronos is many drugs. Yeah, throne, drug, fantastic. They're looking at it from how the drug functions, right? Boom. It's like I don't know what you'd call it, some kind of quantum stuff. Able to sit on the throne. Got a little dust up there. You can smell it. Drugs, animals, plants, things that you can take into your body. Got a little dust up there. You can smell it. This is fantastic.
There's a shot. You can enter into a state, orgiastic, mental,
It's gorgeous.
quantum state.
I want everybody there who can to be seated on the throne.
The throne of Satan.
Anybody not here?
What is
Just before we go further.
I'm glad you paused that.
Okay. Well, we have multiple points there. Then. So, was there any other things about the hazing later, or is that it? Are we done with that topic?
We're going to talk more about the hazing. I'm hoping that I put that in there about the laws of hazing. That video clip you seen was done. It was produced by Cirrus 21. I made the video.
Oh.
Sitting on the throne is such a huge part of the whole cult that they've made the music. And I was like, hey, I'll do the visuals, right? Just to let your audience know that it is very, very prominent. It is a very prominent theme within the cult.
I see.
Mhm.
Since we kind of changing subjects just a little bit, although we'll go back to the hazing thing. I just wanted to talk about why hazing is like such a bad idea or a bad thing. Like, If we go back to the the picture essentially is all right. So it looks like Snappy in the middle. He's smiling, right? So some people might think, okay, well he's smiling. This is just a big joke. It's just fun. It's just there's nothing wrong with this, right? Um, I have some thoughts about it, but I was interested to hear if you ladies had any thoughts on what you've learned about hazing or why you think this is such a big deal.
Um, well, I do know that Chthonius was constantly seeking approval and always seeking approval. And this was this is proof that Ammon pits people against each other. And soon after this situation is when Snappy started to become more of a right hand to Ammon, if that makes sense. And Chthonius constantly was striving to gain even Snappy's approval. At the time I entered in, which was October of last year, and then I left summer solstice this year, Chthonius was constantly seeking that attention. And you can tell that that there is some inebriation going on of some sort, and that Chthonius is extremely nervous here.
Yeah, so you noticed
And
that too.
hazing is against the law actually in all but 5 states in America. It is, and if someone happens to be harmed in any way, physically, like unalive, it then becomes a huge felony.
It. But if you look at his leg at the bottom right there, like it is going crazy. He is. I mean, maybe that's just the type of person he is. He's very anxious all the time. He's nervous. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I myself, in that situation, I would be also nervous about being rejected, saying the wrong thing. Obviously, because of the humiliation that it must be to be looking like you know, dressing like a crazy person essentially, which is I would assume that's the goal here at least. I don't have anything against transgender people or whatever, but it seems like that's the goal is to make them look bad, look like they're some type of crazy person, so that they will subject themselves to doing whatever they want to get acceptance. So if you
Well,
don't have
it
any,
is humbling.
yeah,
It is very humbling, and it is where you kind of learn your place in the pecking order of the cult. He did all 3 of them. So he took the way of Cain, the way of Aphrodite, and the way of Hercules.
huh.
So that could attribute to why, as basically the leader of myth and lore, and was also my groomer.
Mm. Oh wow. So just to get into a little bit of psychology on this thing here. So yeah, so why is hazing wrong from a psychological perspective, or bad or harmful? Okay, so first, victims may experience intense anxiety due to fear of the hazing process or its repercussions. It can escalate to chronic stress, leading to anxiety disorders, depression. Being subject to humiliating and degrading acts can severely damage a person's self-worth and confidence. When you are willing, like when you are publicly willing to essentially shame yourself, that can be like it really ingrained in your mind, like, oh wow, like I'm willing to go that far. I am that almost worthless to be willing to get the acceptance of this group. And Amon might not even be doing this on purpose, or like he doesn't know anything about it. I'm not saying that Amon's a terrible person for this, but the reason I mentioned this is just if you are in this position, if you're ever asked, hey, you should go on a live stream in front of thousands of people and wear a wig and a dress, maybe possibly think about the repercussions that can do you to mentally. Also, victims often feel isolated, especially if they are targeted by their peers or if the group uses hazing as a means to establish hierarchy. They may feel unsupported and believe they cannot speak out due to fear of retaliation or ostracism. They can feel shame for what they're enforced to endure or do during the hazing. They might also feel guilt, believing they should have resisted or reported the incident, even though they were coerced. It can damage the ability to trust others, especially if the perpetrators were peers and people they initially admired. This betrayal can make it hard for them to form healthy relationships in the future. To cope with emotional hazing, some individuals turn to alcohol, drugs, or other risky behaviors. In severe cases, the emotional damage from hazing can be so overwhelming that victims can have, as you mentioned, unaliving thoughts or even unaliving themselves, feeling that there's no escape from the distress. So this is abundantly obvious in the psychological literature. Maybe I'll put a resource in the description here. Any other thoughts before we keep going? Someone's muted. We're both muted. If you don't have any thoughts, okay. All right. I would assume that's a no then.
No, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Oops.
Got a little dust up there. You can smell it. What does that mean? The throne of Satan. What is the throne of Satan? You can watch 1,000 shows. You can watch 1,000 shows. You can watch 1,000 episodes on YouTube all about the throne of Satan, and none of them are correct. None of them. Tonight, I offer you, shut up, Young. I offer you the throne of Satan.
Can you
what is
pause
the
that?
throne of Satan?
Do you see how he's telling you that he's the only one that can show you the truth, basically, like what is the throne of Satan? You know, he is giving away cult secrets here, occulted secrets here.
Is the place from which the satanic power is exercised. It is the star. And if you draw down the star, you can use the images provided by the dead to be born again. That gets us into a little background. You can brainwash them with pictures now. That gets us into a little necessary background. Stand and brainwash, and then we'll bring it back. Be brainwashed for a second. Real will help to thoroughly brainwash you. We've got a couple of real nice clips for you that we're going to look at that will help to thoroughly brainwash you. She means she is Christing. Yep, she is the first Christ. And she, in Christing, is entering herself into a state where she can drive you mad. It's therapeutic, people. It's therapeutic to watch yourself on the stage of life, to watch your own tyranny. Your religion is not what you think it is. Your God is not who you think he is. And you are not who you think you are. Thank you for coming tonight. And thank you for putting up with all of the interruptions. We still made it through. I want to say thank you to Teddy Bass because his latest album is gorgeous. And I want to thank him for that. And I want to thank Chewy for putting a lot of time into making videos. These videos are meant to control your brain.
Any thoughts before we keep going there?
Okay, so he's telling you, so his conscience is clear. That is definitely an occultist thing. It's common knowledge in the occult world is we tell you what we're going to do so our conscience is cleared, correct? We tell you what we're doing to you so our conscience is cleared. We have no karmic ties there. So I was just giving a few examples of him saying these photos that are AI generated and they are very explicit. So if you switch out purple in these AI photos for white, you're going to know what he's meaning to do when he says he's brainwashing you with these photos.
Hmm. And what is? I'm certainly not aware of how changing a color would have any influence on somebody. What am I missing there?
Because he is saying the purple is the carrying agent, this purple dye, this royal murex from the murex shell, the purple dye from the murex shells of ancient times. It was such a trade, it is everywhere. There's so much of it. You're going to find it in the ancient literatures, right? The Herculaneum scrolls, the first word that they found out of the one that they scanned was purple, I believe. So where was I going with this? What was your question again?
The
Sorry.
question was with the brainwashing. He did change the colors. Basically.
Right. Well, because the AI photos in almost every one of these AI photos, you have purple just all over the little girls and little boys, right? And we're talking about sexual acts, and the purple represents this drug compound, but he's putting it all over, the kids.
So I'm certainly not
So,
aware of how someone could actually be brainwashed by this, and it's okay if you don't know the psychological reasons why this, or if this is even possible or whatever. But so I could see how someone would be like, well, he's just being silly, like he's joking, like he's not actually doesn't actually think he's
yes, they
brainwashing.
blame
It's just like a
everything
joke.
on satire. Yeah, they blame they feign that it's satire. They
Uh-huh.
feign that it's satire, and it's just a big play, and it's a big production. Absolutely. So, if your audience wants to learn more about brainwashing and the mind, Pavlov, Povlov, look up his work. It's cringe but enlightening at the same time on uh, just how easily people can be programmed.
Okay. So you're talking about the psychologist Pavlov. Like, yeah, right. Yeah, like an actual psychologist out there. Obviously not live today, but okay, so let's see here. But why don't you think that he was joking? Why do you think he was serious? Like, what kind of person would just say, "Oh, I'm gonna brainwash you"?
Because that is how you get your consensus in your echo chamber, right? Is everybody gets on board. You see it as he sees it. And any pushback, people have left or been removed for their pushback. So it's not just a few people, there's a lot of people. Allie's like, yes. There's,
Sure.
any pushback,
Yeah.
right?
I'll just add in there
Why
the
would
thing
he?
about, I was going to say with the brainwashing, a lot of it is it's designed to put it into your psyche. He's not playing satire. He's actually trying to reprogram your value system. With the images, you get hardened to it. You get, blasé until you're accepting a lot of the quite horrific graphic images that come up later. And it's just a dulling of your conscience all the time. You're just bombarded with it. And it is a way of creating a control over the people. And it's really very, very sickening.
It is. One content creator I'm friends with, he has, and he's worked very hard to make a good channel for himself, has over 100,000 followers, has labeled Ammon Hillman as a shock jock. Says he's nothing more than a shock jock. These photos are meant to desensitize you.
Interesting. And so, without being too explicit, are you talking about like photos of, I guess, naked people and children involved? Are these like these aren't like are they sexually explicit? Like you can't upload that on YouTube, right?
No, these are not sexually explicit.
Yeah,
Okay.
but one of the sickening side of it is that because he teaches, believe it or not, that all of his disciples were also children, he manipulates that out of the text, and there's no foundation at all. But his people believe that all of his disciples were either runaways or they were trafficked slaves, and they are being used by Jesus to keep himself drugged up through the processes. It's crazy, really. But he has, where was I going? Sorry, you'll have to edit this bit. I forgot where I was going. Oh, that's right. I'll come back now. Some of the images are of what look like 4 or 5-year-old little girls staring up at this rather horrendous looking Jesus with this sort of purple dripping off him and this sort of leer on his face, like he's, looking with lust at this sweet little innocent girl. And some of those images I find really revolting.
Oh, somebody got muted again.
And those images are coming up quite often. A lot of them are like sweet, innocent children with this evil Jesus in their midst. It's quite sickening.
He has inspired many people to meme. Okay, meme magic is very powerful and it is effective. And it is something that many of the creators within the cult has taken very seriously and definitely incorporated children and Jesus in with this purple stuff into memes. I mean, I did it. I mean, you can look at my channel and you can see all the things that I did for the group as a whole. Because I thought that I had found my family. You find that group is you need your tribe, right? It's protective and it's validating too. And they make you feel at home once you have been picked. Basically, they will help you feel at home and all the good things as long as you don't push back. And that's very important to a lot of people. It feels very good. People need that, right? People need to be appreciated and wanted and to be part of the team, part of the club. And I thought I had found that. I thought it was something out of the norms, and then come to find out I'm just not cult material at all. So, and that's okay too.
Yeah, that. I really appreciate that extra thoughts there, right? So I guess the important thing there is not necessarily, it's a bad thing to be accepted and loved by other people, whether they're people in this group are loved or not, I don't know. But at least just because you feel welcome doesn't mean it doesn't justify any of the negatives or the harm that it could cause you. And that's something that you want to pay attention to. Hey, I feel good, but I also need to make sure that just feeling good doesn't sacrifice my self-worth or what I'm telling myself or tricking myself into believing or something like that. Because in some ways, Ammon says a lot of true things, right? So I'm not even saying you should reject everything he says, but just to be careful about that kind of stuff. All right, so this next part, interesting.
So, yeah, this is the Chad Meredith. You might want to pause it. Yeah, this is the Chad Meredith Act.
Sorry.
We'll go back. Okay, so this kind of gives you a little bit more talking about hazing. It defines hazing as any action that recklessly or intentionally endangers the mental or physical health and safety of a student, pressures or coerces students into violating the law, committing or being subject to violence, exposing themselves to elements or consuming any food, drug, liquor, or other substances. Pressure coerces students into situations of extreme mental stress social humiliation, or exclusive, or any activity that threatens mental health or dignity. The Chad Meredith law also makes hazing a third-degree felony when it results in serious injury or death, a first-degree misdemeanor when it puts victims at risk for physical injury or death. So this is a law that was enacted and designed in the state of Florida. However, uh, Supreme Courts can actually, if you've ever heard of case law, what case law is if this is a case and they made it an act actually. So Supreme Court can actually pull this up and make decisions based upon this document here in this act.
Very fascinating. Yeah. So, just for
Mhm.
clarity there, so recklessly or intentionally endangering the mental or physical health of a safety of a student. So that would be difficult to prove without specifically talking to anybody. I mean, maybe you can talk on that,
Mhm.
Jevim, if you felt like your mental or physical health was endangered in that situation. I think from the if you can make an argument from the psychological evidence that this is occurring, but that would take a lot more detail to go into. But the next two is it seems
Mhm.
pretty clear. Like drugs are involved. There's obviously a pressure to do drugs, and there's also multiple instances of social humiliation, or threats of this, you're gonna lose out on this if you don't get put in your place. Um,
Right,
any thoughts
right.
there?
And you want to take it. Well, and it's so enticing that you need to do it, right? Because you want to be a part of it because he's the only one that has the special secrets. He's the only
Right.
one that can read the Greek, right? He's the only philologist that understands what they're really saying. So you are really pressured to do these things because you want that knowledge.
Right. Yeah. That's at least what he seems to tell everybody.
Okay, and if you want to pause this just for a second, the states with the hazing, states with the anti-hazing laws are in blue, and then states without any anti-hazing laws are in the gray. So all the blue has anti-hazing laws in it. I have no idea where Hillman resides. Um, Actually, I do, but I won't say it. It is in one of those states that has no anti-hazing laws. So that is something to think about here. There is not a hazing law being broken while he resides in one of these states.
Fascinating.
The whip. People are curious about the whip. The symbolic, anything you can tell us about it. It's a mystery out there in the world.
Do you mean my whip? My mastix?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mastix was involved in part of my life. Just imagine it this way. Catholic university students trying to understand how these people thought that they, as actresses and actors, that they were going to be portraying. Somebody told me when I did this, they said, "You're really Stanislavski," and I was like, "Who?" Or Stanislav? I don't know what it was, right? But I understand. I kind of understood it as like, oh, you're being realistic, right? So part of the whole witchy rite is the Bacchic whip and how it's employed in practice.
You know that in Hilaria they do the scourging.
Yeah. Lupercalia, they also, this is the body scourging. There is something about whipping someone within a rite that has real physical mental power to it. And so I took this whip. The reason this whip is so, it's just a horse crop, right? But I took it and used it in the table talks. And people were like, the very first thing they did, this chorus of furies that was going to be using the whip. Medea is depicted as whipping her dragons, whoosh, right? We had these guys out there. How are you going to get into it? You have to show the actors, right? Our head actor was Medea, and she was phenomenal. And I knew that she had to see what it was like in antiquity in order to get it. So, she whipped me on stage in front of the other actors. Now imagine this. This is the greatest moment of my life. This is the greatest moment because we are closer to the reality of those texts than anything I could say. And these students, they've been studying this play, and they'd been studying how Seneca, what he was putting into the language. I translated for him. And so the whip was became, now you can imagine when administration found out what was going on, you can imagine what happened. This whip was one of the things that perpetuated me to the place that I could teach antiquity. At the same time, its Bacchic radiation dissolved my career. It dissolved it. And one professor stood up after one of the performances and he goes, you're going to get fired. But incredible job. You could taste with this whip. This will be my answer. Dion, this will be my answer. With this whip, I can bring you back 2,000 years. I can show you a way to bridge millennia of time. And it's just because the Bacchic rituals figured that kind of stuff out. So, hey, get ready for it. Everybody needs a good mastix, right?
The Bacchic workup, the frenzy that he's talking about, the excitement, the sexual excitement that comes with it.
The sexual excitement? What do you mean by that?
Absolute. Well, I mean, the whip is the riding crop is used as a prop one for his show, and many of his followers get very excited over the whip when he pulls it out and he starts talking about whipping people.
Mm-hmm.
So it is part of his satire.
Mm-hmm.
To express how to go into these Bacchic frenzies. You're supposed to sit on the throne and get worked up, and you're supposed to work yourself up or be worked up to this elevated state to where you see the divine.
I see. Okay. So it's not just some joke. There's other significance to it. It's not just a teaching thing. What you're saying is it's the goal is to essentially get people in a certain type of mood or mental state that encourages, as you said, the divine and all that stuff. That's really fascinating. Okay.
Right,
And,
right. He's teaching you the ancient mysteries or his version of the ancient mystery, right? Yes.
well, okay.
I'll just throw in a couple of things there. He also uses the whip in his shows to chastise people that he wants chastising. It could be the Apostle Paul, it could be Jung, it could be somebody else, and he's using it
The
for
sisters of
castigation.
frustration.
Yeah, and I've noticed sometimes he's whipped and he says, trousers down. Daddy says, trousers down. I thought, oh gosh, are you having a flashback here? I don't know. So you've got it for that, but also historically, it is known that when you are getting whipped or you're cutting yourself or you're working yourself up like that, you can enter an ecstatic state through the adrenaline rush that your body produces to counter the pain. So that's part of the sexual rush is to inflict pain, and that there is a movement, the bondage, domination, sadism, masochism, BDSM movement, which he actually has some connection with, and that he wrote a play for them, and it was very interesting to see quite how they went about that, with using flails and whips, and they've got all sorts of stuff there. So that was all very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. And last part of the video you have for us is it's a quote. So this is on Discord, and it's got a little So I don't know who it's written from or by, but it says, "I removed the incriminating post that I had added earlier from Ammon's private email with me after our group discussion. I would like to add it back so that everyone has a clear picture of the type of things he was asking us to do in the inner order. This was after a particularly vicious discussion about attacking a specific person and his wife. Ammon proposed to use this energy of us masturbating to send a dream incubus into this Pastor Douglas Wilson's sleep to rape him." So Pastor Douglas Wilson is a very Protestant, pretty sure he's a Reformed Christian guy, okay? And so you're saying, well, I guess I'll read the email as well. This is from David Hillman, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know what's happened here. I know what did happen. I'm gonna have to stop.
Okay, that's okay. All right. Yep. So
Can you see it to read it?
I'll
you
read
can
it.
hear me.
That's
All
okay.
right. Well, I'll explain what it is. This was before I was evicted, but because the shows started at 2 a.m. for me, I wasn't involved. But after the show, they would just hang around. And this is when Ammon would do a lot more intimate talk with them and encourage. There's only about 50 of us involved at the time. This is in January, February 23. And the person speaking was quite disturbed by what he was asking. And you could obviously tell that by the lack of enthusiasm that he was responding with. It was all by VC, voice chat. And he was shot this email encouraging him to get on with it. Pastor Doug Wilson is quite renowned for his patriarchal teachings, and Ammon is quite a champion of basically anything that church says is a rule, you've got to break it. Whether or not he has compassion for women, I don't know, but it's part of the going against it, that breaking down what he feels are restrictive rules within the church, and it's probably a good one. Women are no different to men. So this was during the time of there was a revival in one of the campuses of the university in Tennessee. And I remember in the streams he's saying, we've got to stop that. So they were as such doing all sorts of things, supposedly spiritually trying to thwart the revival going on. And for some reason, he picked up on Doug Wilson, had some rather nasty things to say about him, and asked his people to produce the power for him to be an incubus and go and dream rape him, which is very nice. But my friend didn't want to do that. Then apparently the day after, the revivals were shut down, which the few that were involved were all sort of, hooray, hooray, aren't we powerful? But the truth is that it was a few days beforehand, somebody with measles was in, thousands of people all milling around there. And the health authority said, look, people that are not vaccinated, we can't have a pandemic starting off. You need 21 days isolation. And the people at the campus decided to close the meetings. So, it's all a farce they play anyway. So that's the backstory.
All right. So I'll just read the email real quick. So this is from Ammon Hillman. He says, watch this, please. Maybe jerk off while you do. Seriously. Hi, and jerking off. And remember, this guy believes 12-year-olds should have to legally marry their rapists. And F anyone who can't support the virgin. Ammon Hillman. So this is... He actually uses the word seriously. So it seems to me like it wouldn't be appropriate to say he was just kidding, right?
No.
And what is the incubus? Tell me about that.
Well,
Frankly,
incubus and succubus is these, demonic beings that through sex steal your life energy, your essence. And I remember Snappy told me about this and said that, everybody was freaked out. They honestly felt like they caused that revival to shut down. They are owning the magic that they did in order to shut that down. Because I knew about it, I mean,
No.
how would I have known about it before Allie? As that was before my time.
Hmm. So you covered the name of the person. I would assume that he wants to be anonymous. Either way, I guess someone might think this is like just silly, like they're not doing anything serious or there's no harm. They're just, they might even think it's real, but it's just it's not real and it's not hurting anybody. Did you have any thoughts to add there that like, what's the big deal about this?
Well, sex magic has always been really big in the occult, and things do happen. Things do change in people's lives when they start doing these types of rituals. And I think that it was a bit of a shock jock situation where something happened and then boom, you know, Ammon has people do this sex magic. If something happens, that automatically means that Ammon knows what he's doing and he's talking about, and he can teach them real magic, right? So, uh, yeah, that was very important for them to be able to do that and to do that magic.
Fascinating. Okay. Yeah. And it goes without being said, simply because uh, revival gets shut down could be purely a coincidence. It's not like it was going to last forever, anyways. Um,
Right. Right. I also want to hit on too, before Allie starts hers, is that many people, remember, I knew lots of people. Many people come to me telling me, they would dream of him. I've had dreams of him. Many people have had these dreams of Amen. So whatever it is that is going on, I feel like Amen's fully aware that he knows the effects that he is having on people.
sure. Right. Right. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, so I think this will conclude uh, part one, unless there was other things you wanted to add. Ali, did you have anything that was worth mentioning on this topic? Not your own, but as
No, I think probably that's about it there at the
okay.
moment.
Yeah. So you can check out the video that both of you did. It'll be in the description about the um, you showed a video and you talked about the culture. Um, so there's other things that could be said. Talked about like the the response to critics of how anybody who disagrees, it's just completely shut it down. We're not listening to you're not part of our group. You're getting kicked out and all kinds of stuff said about both of you. But yeah, I do really, really appreciate both of you coming on here and talking about this. Everybody should make sure to check out part two. We're going to post a number of different videos on this topic of Ammon Hillman. You can check out Jevim's channel after this, and it'll be in the description. You can check out my videos on the topic, and make sure to also check out the video that Ali and I will do together on the actual scholarly aspect of this discussion of whether there's truth or what exactly is true and what Ammon is saying about the Greek text and what happened with Jesus.